Hi, I'm Louise, and this is Escapee. So I was digging around trying to figure out who I was going to talk about next. So please let me know if you have anyone that you would like me to cover. New ideas are always welcome. Anyway, I was looking at Canada, moving around, trying to keep from being stuck in one country and all of that. I'm a bit excited. I'm a bit excited. Today is a unique one. And while I'm trying to leave American escapees to further down the list, not because I have anything against America, they're just overstated flamboyance and domination of world news and things tends to dominate the landscape. Anyway, this one has a touch of Canada, but this exciting discovery I just had to cover it as soon as possible because today's escapee is a woman. I know, right? The ratio of male to female offenders is roughly 75% male to 25% female. Prison escapees being a teeny tiny percentage of prison populations. The law of numbers means the likelihood of a female escapee is so low as to be almost non-existent. So imagine my excitement when a female escapee jumped out at me. Yes, that pun was totally intended. So today is Laurencia Ann Bembenek, also known as Laurie Bembenek, and was nicknamed Bambi by the press. She was born on the 15th of August 1958, the youngest of three girls to Joseph and Virginia Bembenek in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Hi, Milwaukee. Her father, Joseph, had worked for the Milwaukee Police Department, the MPD, but quit after witnessing what he described as corruption there. He later worked as a carpenter. Laurie Bembenek was 178 centimeters tall, 5'10", 63 kilograms, or 140 pounds at the time of her arrest, with blue eyes and blonde hair. I get the impression that she was a natural brunette. She was very attractive. Chris Radish described Laurencia Bembenek. She was one of those radical women's libbers, the kind of woman who thought females deserved a chance, an equal chance. She was also one of the most beautiful cops the department had ever seen. She was tall, with a great set of legs, sky blue eyes, long, slender figure, and had a head of thick blonde hair. End quote. Raised Catholic, Bembenek attended St. Augustine's Elementary School and St. Mary's Academy in Milwaukee. She later transferred to Bayview High School, where she graduated in 1976. Bembenek attended Bryan Stratton College in Virginia Beach, Virginia, where she earned an associate degree in fashion merchandising management. After college, Bembenek returned to Milwaukee, where she worked in retail and had a brief stint as a model. In 1978, she appeared as Miss March in a calendar distributed by Joseph Schlitz Brewing Company. Bembenek then enrolled in the police academy, eventually becoming an officer at the Milwaukee Police Department, MPD, in 1980. She was fired in August of 1980 for not reporting a friend for smoking marijuana while at a concert. After her termination, she considered filing a discrimination complaint against the police department and provided the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, with photographs of off-duty MPD officers posing naked at a party. Her cooperation with the EEOC was not well received by the police, and she believed she created enemies within the department because of it. Bembenek briefly worked as a waitress at the Playboy Club in Lake Geneva, where she met Fred Schultz, who was already a 13-year veteran of the MPD, not to mention at least 10 years older than Bembenek. Fred Schultz divorced his wife, Christine, and went on to marry Laurie Bembenek in January of 1981, then remarried her in November of 1981, as the first marriage between the two was declared invalid since Fred had not waited 6 months as mandated by Wisconsin law. On May 28, 1981, at approximately 2:15 a.m., 30-year-old Christine Schultz was murdered by a single .38 caliber pistol shot fired point blank into her back through her heart. She had been gagged and blindfolded, and her hands were tied in front of her with rope. Her two sons, then 7 and 11, found her face down on her bed and bleeding. The older boy, Sean, had seen the assailant and described him as a masked male figure in a green army jacket and black shoes. He also said the man had a long, approximately 15 centimeters or 6 inches long, reddish-colored ponytail. Christine Schultz was the ex-wife of Bembenek's then-husband, Alfred Fred Schultz, a Milwaukee Police Department detective. They had been divorced for 6 months at the time of her murder. Bembenek's trial generated tremendous publicity, and newspapers began referring to her as Bambi Bembenek, a nickname she disliked. The prosecution portrayed her as a loose woman addicted to expensive living who wanted Christine Schultz dead so that her new husband would no longer have to pay alimony. The prosecution pointed out that Bembenek also had financial problems. The prosecution claimed that Bembenek was the only person with the motive, means, and opportunity to carry out the crime. The strongest evidence was 2 human hairs found at the crime scene, which matched the ones taken from the hairbrush of the defendant. The gun used to kill Christine Schultz turned out to be Bembenek's husband's off-duty revolver. The prosecution claimed that Bembenek was the only person besides Fred Schultz who had access to this weapon. Blood was found on the gun. Bembenek supposedly also had access to a key to Christine Schultz's home. There were no signs of a break-in and no valuables taken. Schultz's eldest son, however, stated that Bembenek was not the person who had held up their house and shot his mother. Witnesses testified that Bembenek had spoken often of killing Christine Schultz. The prosecution produced a witness who said Bembenek offered to pay him to carry out the murder. According to witnesses for the prosecution, Bembenek owned a green jogging suit similar to the one described by Schultz's son. How did we go from a army jacket to a jogging suit? But anyway. It was pointed out that Bembenek owed a clothesline and a blue bandana similar to what was used to bind and gag the victim. A wig found in the plumbing system of Bembenek's apartment matched fibers found at the murder scene. A boutique employee testified that Bembenek purchased such a wig shortly before the murder. Bembenek was found guilty of first-degree murder in March 1982 and sentenced to life in prison in Taycheedah Correctional Institution. On June 28, 1983, Bembenek filed for divorce from Fred Schultz, stating that Fred had written her a letter saying he was living with a 19-year-old woman in Florida and had decided to end their marriage. Their divorce was granted on the 19th of June 1984. While in prison, Bembenek earned a bachelor's degree from the University of Wisconsin, Parkside, helped found a prisoner's newspaper, and became engaged to a factory worker, Dominic Gigliato, the brother of her cellmate. 8 years into her life sentence, Bembenek, fed up with the system and fearing she might spend most of the rest of her life behind bars, escaped on July 15, 1990, from the Taycheedah Correctional Institution by crawling through a laundry room window, climbing over a 7-foot barbed wire fence, and meeting up with her fiancé, Gigliato, to begin a new life on the run. Bembenek and Gigliato fled to Thunder Bay, Ontario. Hi, Thunder Bay. Sensational stories about their relationship swirled through the American tabloids. Her escape also reignited publicity surrounding her case, and she became something of a folk hero. Many people in Milwaukee supported her. Most said that should they see her, they would not turn her in, wanting her to get away. They thought she'd gotten a bad rap. People protested openly on the streets on her behalf and even came up with a song, "Run, Bambi, run." They made the masks of her face, put bumper stickers on their cars. Bembenek and Gigliato took new names from tombstones to obtain birth certificates and social security numbers. Bembenek used the name Jennifer Gazana, finding work as a waitress and a fitness instructor. They remained free for 3 months before a tourist who had seen Bembenek's picture on America's Most Wanted turned her in. The Canadian police picked her up just minutes before she was set to flee again. Gigliato was deported to the United States a month later and was eventually sentenced to a year in prison for his role in the escape. Bembenek pleaded for refugee status, claiming she was being persecuted by the a conspiracy between the police department and the judicial system in Wisconsin. The Canadian government investigated her case and pointed out many legal errors in her trial. Before returning her to Wisconsin, Canada obtained a commitment that Milwaukee officials would conduct a judicial review of her case, although the review did not find evidence of crimes by police or prosecutors. It did list 7 major police blunders that had occurred during the Christine Schultz murder investigation. As a result, Bembenek won the right to a new trial. Bembenek voluntarily returned to the United States on April 22, 1991. Rather than risk a second conviction and get out of prison earlier, she pleaded to no contest, nolo contendere, to second-degree murder during the hearing held on the 9th of December in 1992. Bembenek was sentenced to 20 years, which was commuted to time served, and 10 years probation. She was released from custody 3 hours after the hearing, having served little more than 10 years of her original sentence. Over the following 18 years, Bembenek published Woman on Trial in 1993, had various legal and personal problems. She was arrested again in possession of marijuana and filed for bankruptcy, was diagnosed with hepatitis C, which she had acquired from her mother at birth, and had other liver and kidney problems. She admitted to being an alcoholic, legally changed her name from Laurencia to Laurie, moved to Washington State to be near her retired parents in Vancouver, Washington. Hi, Vancouver. And married a U.S. Forest Service employee, Marty Carson, in 2005. She was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, complicated by a growing addiction to alcohol. Her husband, Carson, encouraged her to devote her time to her passion of painting as a form of therapy, as she'd been painting since childhood. Her early work had been the subject of an exhibition at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee in 1992. Carson constructed a studio for her, and she eagerly returned to her art. After several years, she had amassed about 30 paintings, which she put on display at a local art gallery. She lost all the paintings when the gallery burned down. In 2002, Bembenek either fell or jumped from a second-story window, breaking her leg so badly that it had to be amputated below the knee. Bembenek said that she had been held in an apartment by handlers in preparation for appearing on the Dr. Phil television show. A spokesman for the show said that they had intended to protect her from media harassment. Bembenek said the confinement felt too much like her time in solitary in prison. She tried to escape and suffered injury. She sued Dr. Phil, Paramount, and 52 staffers from the show. The lawsuit was settled out of court. Bembenek continued to proclaim her innocence, but the Wisconsin Supreme Court refused to overturn her no contest plea, saying that such a plea cannot be withdrawn. In 2008, Bembenek filed a petition with the U.S. State Supreme Court seeking a reversal of the second murder conviction. Bembenek's attorney pointed to the evidence withheld in the original trial, including ballistics tests that showed that the murder bullets did not match Fred Schultz's gun, male DNA found on the victim, evidence showing that the victim had been sexually assaulted, and the eyewitness testimony of the 2 young sons who claimed that the intruder was a heavy-set, masked man. Bembenek's petition argued that the court needed to clarify whether defendants who pled guilty or no contest have the same right to review evidence as those who plead not guilty. Her appeal was denied in June 2008. Bembenek died 20 November 2010 at a hospice facility in Portland, Oregon, from liver and kidney failure. There are ongoing procedures to get her conviction overturned. If you enjoyed this one, please do all the clicks, bells, bings, all those lovely supportive things content creators ask for. Have a good one. I'll see you next time. Thank you.